Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be looking at the top transfers going into Game Week 20. Now, for those that don't know, Game Week 20 has been announced as a double game week, and the four teams that will be having a double game week are going to be Man City, Man United, Spurs and Crystal Palace. So considerable teams here that have double game weeks. So naturally, in this video, we are going to be looking at those players, particularly from those teams, and some excellent differentials that I think should be on your radar. So guys, if you are new around here, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoy the video, make sure you do drop a like. We're trying to hit 100 likes on this video, so it'd be fantastic if you could help us along the way there. So guys, without further ado, let's take a look at the first top transfer going into Game Week 20. Okay guys, so the first player that I believe is going to be a top transfer going into Game Week 20 is going to be Harry Kane. Somebody who has had such a fantastic season, but feels like it's almost been quite overshadowed by the ridiculous numbers that Erling Haaland has been posting at Man City. You can see that on the screen, 18 games for Harry Kane, 15 goals. And it's also worth noting, he's had 4 assists as well. So 19 goal involvements has actually made up 50% of all of Spurs' goals. So this man right now is the absolute talisman in this Spurs team. Now you can see a few underlying numbers here. Expected goals per 90 at 0.6. This is actually 7th best for forwards. Again, there are a few forwards in there that have had less minutes than him naturally, but XG per 90, 0.6 is decent numbers. And it's worth noting as well, something that Harry Kane has been fantastic at so far this season is being so consistent. While other assets might be delivering in 1 or 2 games, hitting a hat-trick or maybe braces, Harry Kane's been consistently scoring in each and every game. And naturally, when we're bringing in a player, I feel more comfortable bringing in a player that has been performing at a consistent basis over the course of the season, rather in purple patches where we can't really predict the points for future outcomes. So I'm not really too worried about the 0.6 XG per 90, even though when you compare it to the likes of Darwin and Haaland, it's considerably less. And what I love about Harry Kane is his bonus points per 90 at 1.4. I've discussed this on previous videos. Bonus points is what differentiates a good FPL asset from a great FPL asset. And when we have someone like Harry Kane, who is an absolute talisman in the team, 1.4 bonus per 90, when you start to add that up over the course of the season, that is why he is such a fantastic FPL option. And he is considerably the best in this department compared to the likes of Darwin Núñez, who we know cannot hit the back of the net. Now, a few things I want to note in regards to Harry Kane going forward. First and foremost, the fixtures coming up, as I mentioned, a double in Game Week 20 is always going to be appealing for us FPL managers. But what I want to note is probably the hardest double game week you could possibly imagine is what is presented for Spurs. Arsenal at home, followed by Man City away. 2 of the best underlying defensive numbers of any team in the Premier League. I just want to quickly cover those. Arsenal's expected goals conceded in the last 17 games is 13.41, the best of any team. And Man City have the second best over the last 17 league games of 14.63 expected goals conceded. So look, Spurs are playing a team here that don't really give up many chances, and their numbers are fantastic. So we need to take that as a little bit of a thought process when we are considering Harry Kane into our teams. Yes, they did beat Crystal Palace 4-0, but only recently they lost 2-0 against Aston Villa and looked woeful. So we need to remember there's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde to this Spurs team, and we need to hope that we get the good side of Spurs going into these double game weeks. Now, why would I be considering Harry Kane with such difficult fixtures? And I think really, as I mentioned, it's because of the talismanic potential that he does offer in the Spurs team. If Spurs are going to perform in these 2 fixtures, then absolutely Harry Kane is going to be at the heart of it. And based on his projected points for Game Week 20, he's projected to score 8.6 points, which is the second best of all forwards. Naturally, Haaland is going to be topping him because he has a double game week himself, but no one is suggesting to do a sideways move from Haaland to Kane. Now, over the next 4 game weeks, Harry Kane is projected to score 23.8 points, which is the second best of all forwards. And I think he still has some attractive fixtures in the longer term, away against Fulham and away against Leicester. So I absolutely think there's more longevity in the Harry Kane transfer rather than just focusing on this double game week. I think there is justified moves to just hold him once you buy him in for game week 20. Now, I'm going to put a scenario here that I imagine quite a few managers out there maybe sat there still with Darwin Núñez is potentially thinking of downgrading Cancelo and then maybe upgrading Darwin Núñez into Harry Kane. Now, obviously based on this game week alone, Harry Kane has better projected points than Harry Kane. And Darwin Núñez over the next 4 game weeks is projected to score 17.5 points, which is about 5 points less than Harry Kane over this period. Now, there's a few things to consider. First and foremost, you've probably heard it already that Darwin Núñez is an absolute monster when it comes to underlying stats. And he basically is beating Harry Kane for every single metric. Expected goals, expected assists, shots, big chances, you name it. Darwin Núñez is outscoring Harry Kane per 90 minutes. And it's also worth noting that Liverpool potentially may have a double game week announced for game week 21. Now, if we were to get a situation before the game week 20 deadline that Liverpool were to have a double game week in the coming weeks, I think that throws a spanner in the works and suggests that potentially holding Darwin Núñez over the coming game weeks is the worthwhile move rather than going sideways to Harry Kane for this tricky double game week. If we weren't to get an announcement of Liverpool's double game week, then I think pulling the trigger on Darwin Núñez to Harry Kane does make sense. I think holding Darwin Núñez for potential doubles after the 20 means that you're going to miss the boat on Harry Kane with this double game week. And yes, I know I mentioned that it is a tricky one, but I still think there's potential for points with someone like Harry Kane who can deliver at any point in any game. So I'll be really interested to know your thoughts, guys, in the chat. What is your thoughts on Harry Kane going into game week 20? So next up, we're going to move into a midfielder that I think is really attractive for this double game week 20. Now, of course, that is going to be Man City's Kevin De Bruyne. Somebody that has been, similar to Harry Kane, ticking over nicely so far this season. 17 games, 10 assists, and 3 goals on top of that. And I think the narrative has been pretty much the same for Kevin De Bruyne that it has been over recent years. Much more of a chance creator rather than a goal threat. And you can see that in the expected assists per 90 at 0.49, the best of any midfielder by quite a considerable distance. And also big chances per 90 that you can see on the screen there. 1.15 is again considerably more than any other midfielder in the game. But again, it always comes back to what are we buying midfielders for? We know that obviously goals equals points. You get more points for a goal than you do an assist in a game. And Kevin De Bruyne's underlying numbers for expected goals aren't the best per 90 minutes. 0.18 expected goals per 90 is quite poor, I would say, in comparison to the other premium midfielders and even mid-price midfielders in the game. And we're not really seeing Kevin De Bruyne operate in those goal-scoring opportunities. However, we are seeing the best of him when it comes to chances created. So again, it depends what you're kind of looking at for a midfielder. I think De Bruyne absolutely can score. There's no worries about that. But I think you are probably paying 12.5 million for someone who is likely to get assists accumulation rather than goal accumulation. But I don't think that's anything to necessarily put you off going forward. Now, as we mentioned, double game week for Man City, away against Man United and at home against Spurs. And I would say that these fixtures are probably worse than what they would have been a month ago. Man United under Ten Hag at Old Trafford, I think, is going to be a tricky fixture. Yes, in the reverse fixture, we saw an absolute domination from Man City. But I think this is more of an established Man United team now going into this game week. And I also think there is more of a threat to Man United. So I don't think this is going to be a walkover for Man City, even though I do think they will win. And the Spurs fixture is incredibly unpredictable. We are either going to get the incredible counter-attacking Spurs team, or we're going to get the Spurs team that operated against Aston Villa, who were terribly woeful. So really, really hard to predict this double game week. But what we do know longer term is Man City look great for the long-term fixtures. Wolves at home, yes, under a new manager, but I'd anticipate them to do well against anybody at the Etihad. Then Spurs away, yes, a tricky fixture, but then a confirmed double game week in game week 23 as well, at home to Villa and away against Arsenal. And I think this is the real pull factor towards Kevin De Bruyne, is that confirmed double game week in 20 and 23. Now, I think the logic comes back to this. If we do not get confirmation that Liverpool have a double game week announced before the deadline, I think moving Mo Salah to Kevin De Bruyne probably is a wise move for your teams. I think the thing to consider is if you were to pull the trigger, I think you hold Kevin De Bruyne over the next 4 game weeks, even if Mo Salah gets an announcement of a double in between Kevin De Bruyne's. I think jumping between the two is almost a waste of your free transfer when other areas of your team is likely to be addressed. Now, based on game week 20 in isolation, Kevin De Bruyne is projected to score 10.5 points, whereas Mo Salah is projected to score 5.4. So quite considerable difference there in the projected numbers. And over the next 4 game weeks, Kevin De Bruyne is projected to outscore Salah, but not by a considerable distance. And if we were to throw in potentially a double game week for Mo Salah, then I think the gap is going to be almost leveled, if not Mo Salah exceed Kevin De Bruyne. So I think, again, it's going to all come down to what those projected points are. Apologies, like double game week announcement is for Mo Salah and Liverpool. But in terms of midfielders, if you're looking for a premium, I still think Kevin De Bruyne is the route to go for, even though his goal threat isn't necessarily as high as other assets in the game. So guys, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Kevin De Bruyne. I'm going to come on to a defender now that, while he might not be glamorous, I think is a wise move for your transfers. And that man is going to be Man City's John Stones at 5.4 million. Now, it's worth noting, when I was creating the kind of script for this video in a bit of detail, really, John Stones isn't an exciting FPL pick. Let's just kind of address that first and foremost. I think if people are trying to hype you about John Stones, then you're not going to be that excited by it. Basically, if we're bringing in John Stones into our FPL teams, we are naturally bringing him in for basically the clean sheet potential in this Man City team. Yes, he's picked up 2 assists, but his expected goals and his expected assists per 90 are in the 0.0s. Really, really little. Nothing to compare against the likes of fullbacks in the FPL game. So, look, we're bringing in John Stones here for the minutes and the double game week in 20 and 23. Now, naturally, I think a lot of managers right now are probably sat there with João Cancelo and thinking, what do I do with this player who is such a hard player to nail down for minutes? And I think the answer is probably to sell Cancelo. And naturally, the replacement in that Man City backline is going to be John Stones. Played the last 6 league games. Pep Guardiola's press conferences have been all but praise for Stones. So I think if you are trying to target a Man City defender, I think John Stones is the route to go for. But what I want to say to you is this. Do not be expecting goals or assists. You're basically bringing in a defender for 6 points each and every week, hopefully. What I do like about Man City defenders, bonus points per 90 for Stones is 0.54. Naturally, passes from the back line means that he accumulates a decent bonus point baseline. So I like John Stones for when he keeps a clean sheet. So solid chance he may pick up the odd bonus if the game is tight and we don't get a monster haul from the likes of Haaland or Kevin De Bruyne. So yes, I am a fan of Cancelo down to Stones for you to fund moves elsewhere in your team. But of course, it isn't the most exciting move for your FPL teams. But let me know in the comments, guys, if you are planning on bringing in John Stones into your FPL teams. I think it's justifiable naturally for your sides. Right, last up, we're going to be coming to a differential section. 4 players that I think should be a consideration for your teams if you're looking for that little bit of a punt in your team and maybe at a rank that you're not happy with. Okay, guys, so on the screen here, you can see a variety of positions from a variety of different teams. Now, worth noting quickly, I did have Dalot on the graphic, but he did go off injured in Man United's cup game. I don't know the current situation on him, but if we were to get confirmation that Ten Hag says he is available, completely fit and ready to start, I do think Dalot is a fantastic alternative to Luke Shaw. You just have to remember that there could be a slight rotation risk with Wan-Bissaka while Dalot's minutes get eased back into the first team. But Dalot is definitely one to consider. So defenders, I've got Doherty on the screen here. Now, at 4.6 million, whereas John Stones is being brought into your FPL teams to basically cover the Man City clean sheet potential, Doherty is kind of the opposite here. We know that their double game week for Spurs is ridiculously hard against Arsenal and Man City, and he also has Man City in game week 22. So look, clean sheets might be hard to come by for Spurs assets, and I wouldn't recommend anyone bringing in Doherty if they are wanting the bread and butter clean sheet potential. I think with Doherty right now, what we are anticipating is potentially some future attacking returns, or at least some threat from him at 4.6 million. Expected goals per 90, 0.1, and expected assists per 90, 0.04. Look, these numbers aren't fantastic, but I do think in a Conte team that is functioning well, his wing-backs are always a threat, and we know Doherty can historically be a goal scorer in any team that he plays as a wing-back. And at 4.6 million, I just think he offers a nice deliberation for FPL managers, whether they want to go for the safe route of John Stones in a Man City defence, or they want to go a bit more adventurous with the potential attacking returns of Matt Doherty. I personally think I would favour John Stones, but if you are at a rank that you're not happy with and you want to get some differential defender in your team, I don't think they come much better than Doherty at that price point of 4.6 million, so definitely one to consider. Next up, Riyad Mahrez in midfield for Man City. Whereas Kevin De Bruyne didn't necessarily offer the goal threat to justify his price point, at 7.5 million, Mahrez's underlying numbers historically have always been fantastic, but it's all been about trying to jump on at the time when he is getting that game time. And recently, he's been a bit of a purple patch, and Pep Guardiola's comments have actually been really promising for Mahrez. And looking at his underlying numbers, expected goals per 90, 0.36, and expected assists, 0.24. And what I love about Mahrez as well is the bonus point accumulation. 0.62 per 90 means that, you know, if he's getting in the goal scoring, he is right in amongst it for the bonus points, which is always fantastic for an option at 7.5 million. We need to remember he has a double in 20 and a double in 23. So I think if managers right now want to jump on a midfielder, the best by far is going to be Mahrez if you're willing to take that risk of rotation that naturally always comes about with Pep Guardiola midfielders. A 7.5 million isn't really a difficult player to squeeze into your teams if you want to downgrade or maybe upgrade a certain midfielder. And his projected points over the next 4 is 17. And I would argue if we see considerable minutes in the double game week, those projected points are only going to increase, as these are of course based on expected minutes, and we're always very, very conscious of the minutes that Mahrez might get. But for me, if I was sat at a rank I'm not happy with, Mahrez absolutely would be the punt to go for in game week 20. He's been an absolute fire. The expected FPL points is 6.73. I think it's a fantastic punt for your teams and a bit of a differential to Kevin De Bruyne that a lot of managers are going to go towards. Now, Martial at Man United, somebody that's been posting decent numbers under Erik ten Hag, but minutes have been very, very difficult to suggest he's a good option. Been coming off around the 60-minute mark each and every game to kind of manage him, as Ten Hag knows he's the only forward in that squad, until, of course, Wout Weghorst comes into the Man United team. And I do think that is something we need to consider as well. Once Weghorst is available for Man United, as we are predicting, I think that is going to decrease Martial's minutes. Does that make him a better option? I don't think so. But for this double game week in isolation, you could potentially put a punt on him at 6.6 million. 0.68 expected goals per 90 is fantastic reading, and expected FPL points per 90 is 6.31. I don't think personally I would go there, but if you want to get another Man United investment up front, I think Martial is a good option, and projected points of 16.5 aren't too bad in comparison to other Man United players. Last up, Bruno Fernandes at 9.8 million. A player that has been completely overlooked this season, and rightly so. The numbers haven't been fantastic, and his price point has made him such a difficult player to justify in your team structure. 16 games so far this season played. But what I want to say about Fernandes is, in the absence of Ronaldo, and what I would argue is kind of the change in Man United since Ten Hag has had the players available to him, playing the formation that he wants to do, having the midfield available that he wants. I want to look more at the shorter term of Fernandes, and over the last 4 or 5 game weeks, we've seen his expected assists and chances created improve drastically in comparison to the opening 10 game weeks. So I think we're seeing an improving Fernandes week in, week out, based on the players that are available to Ten Hag, which has been his best start in 11. And looking at his expected assist 0.34 compared to his expected goals of 0.16, my only worry about Fernandes is he kind of feels like a Kevin De Bruyne character, where we're paying for a player that is getting chance creation rather than potential goal threat. And I think that's the caveat that I want managers to remember going forward is we're not seeing him get into them goal scoring opportunities that we were last season. And because of that, I think he's a great differential, but longer term, I'd much rather you just go for Rashford in midfield and invest elsewhere in your team and maybe even go for the punt on Mahrez at 2 million cheaper. So guys, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 20 top transfer video. I really hope that it's provided some value to you guys and solved a few headaches that you have had going into Game Week 20. I would love to know your transfer thoughts in the comments below. So guys, if you aren't already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. It'd be great to have you along the journey this season. And if the video did provide some value, please do consider hitting that like button. All the information taken from Fantasy Football Fix, and you can check out all the links in the bio. So that just leaves me to say have a fantastic game week, and I will see you on the Game Week 20 deadline live stream Friday, 5:30 p.m. Take care. Cheers.